People started joining us. I guess we can wait like a couple more seconds and then just make a start because we have a lot of exciting news for today, a lot of things to discuss. By the way, this application, the urlist.com, now doesn't allow me to log in because of the issues on the Twitter side. So that means my competition with Elon Musk now on a personal level. So why did they do that? Why he broke this really nice application? I really like it.
You know what
Write
you can
him a
do?
negative mail.
You can create a Twitter account and complain at Elon Musk personally in comments. It's a bite
I
for you
believe
to create an account.
I believe I'll be banned like in a couple of seconds directly by Elon.
And it would be better if you buy a blue button mark for your account.
Okay.
It's a plan.
Write him just like, hey, you, what is it? And put the screenshot.
Okay, that's a good idea. Good. So I think we can make a start, right? So I think everyone who wanted to join has already joined. Other people will join a bit later, but anyway, let's make a start. So it's been a while since our previous .NET Morning Coffee meetup, and a lot of exciting news, a lot of exciting events had happened since that time. But because we are limited in time and we don't want to share like everything, we will just concentrate on the most important updates for today. And logically, I think it will be like two parts. The first one is about .NET 8 Previews 4. This is something that Microsoft released in the middle of May. And once we discuss that, guys, we will move on to another like a really huge event, which was a Microsoft build that happened on May 23rd till May 25th. So it was a 3 days event. So Microsoft offers to participate online or in person, offered to participate online or in person. And actually, one of our colleagues who worked with me in the same location, he traveled to this event and posted some pictures with the guys who are responsible for C# C# language development. I'm so jealous about that. Anyway, so right, let's make a start. Let's talk about .NET 8 Preview 4. So I think somewhere in November they are going to release .NET 8, but now it's still in preview. But a lot of exciting things in these previews were released. So and let's talk about .NET 8 first, then move on to ASP.NET Core and Entity Framework Core. By the way, really interesting that core word now is not in the name of .NET, but it is still in ASP.NET Core. Okay. So
It's
what
not
was
now,
really
it's for last 2 or so
yeah
releases actually.
since the fifth release, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was released in .NET in general? So first of all, Microsoft released some changes in MS Build functionality in order to make build output logs like more clear, more obvious for us and for tools that we are going to use in order to parse these outputs. Now, if you run a build and add -tl command, you will be able to control how the build output logs will be put in your terminal, and so Microsoft believes this will make just an experience much clean, much more clear, much more obvious. So there would be much easier to understand where the error had happened and so on. So yeah, well, nothing really crucial, but really nice thing.
will be fancy
here.
output until it appears in some older technologies like Jenkins output, where it will be messed.
Agree. So another thing again is related to build tools. This is the way where the output artifacts will be placed after your build. So in Preview 3, they announced that there is a decision to put everything in artifacts, in .artifacts folder. Now they decided to omit this dot and push everything into just artifacts. And also they decided to remove this option from project file to centralized directory build props file in order to avoid some mess when, for example, one project has this option turned on, another one has not. And also the justification to get rid of this dot, because on Linux, for example, systems, everything that starts with dot usually a hidden folder, and they just don't want to make any mess here. There are other justifications related to that, but yeah, just major change here is that it will be just artifacts, not dot artifacts. Also, a lot of changes were introduced in how the build tools will work with NuGet packages and with all the security audits. So, I mean, the way how build tools will work with NuGet is just, it will be more safer, more secure. So that's the change. And the last part here is set of changes related to libraries. And probably the most exciting thing is time abstraction. So there will be introduced a time provider class, and it will be really easy for you to just inherit from this time provider, mock it, and actually vast majority of async methods will be able to, so that there will be additional parameter with this time provider class. So for example, if you use task.delay method or something like that, you will be able to pass the time provider parameter and like get the behavior, get your desired behavior. So really cool, really nice addition to the core library. There are a few other
Actually, they already started to adopt this time provider across not only .NET Runtime but across ASP.NET Core libraries, because in the past they had custom iTime provider or something like that, or iTime clock, which they used to have a better unit testing capabilities. And I believe that majority of us implemented such a thing in the past on production projects when we had a requirement to test how it behaves with time. So now they start to adopt it internally, because it's important to dogfood such things to get faster feedback.
Agree.
Cycle.
Agree.
And could you probably scroll up to
you want
security?
To talk about okay.
No, not ETF. Security option is actually interesting option, because I believe that, again, most of us on production projects have to deal with some external security tools like Black Duck or Veracode or anything like this that can scan your projects, your dependencies, and complain when it has some security breaches. But now such capability can be introduced into your usual .NET CLI workflow, and it can reduce need to use external tools, because it will be much faster, I believe, and integrated closely with NuGet by itself. It's a very interesting option for some projects which suffer from external tools, as for example.
Will it use the same database with vulnerabilities that use, for example, the Black Duck or Veracode?
It's an interesting question, which source of information it will use undercover. I'm not sure about it yet.
We'll
But
see.
a few months ago, I investigated, and .NET CLI already has some predecessor of this option with some limited capabilities. Maybe they improved its functionality or extended it in this release.
Yeah, so guys, it's really nice that you described this topic in details, because for me everything that starts from security is so boring. I usually just skip all these details. Okay. So what else here? So native IoT, we will talk about that when start talking about ASP.NET Core, because this is probably the most important thing. Well, okay, so however, here we can take a look at this table. So they were able to optimize the size a little bit for a Hello World application. So now in order to print Hello World in console using .NET, you need an exe file with a little more than 1 megabyte. Really exciting. Not at all, actually. I'm so sarcastic. If you use C++, it will be like probably less than kilobyte. Okay. What else? Yeah, another interesting thing is about system.text.json. Now it will be possible to deserialize read-only members. Well, yeah, it's good. It's good to be able to do that. You can control this option to deserialize read-only members or not. And a lot of things.
Part of the changes to System.6.json a result of dogfooding of native IoT to own libraries. When they introduce native IoT, start to use source generator for System.6.json, face with problems, get back to System.6.json, fix it, and repeat and repeat and repeat again.
Yeah.
It's a good thing, I believe.
Agree. And as usual, a lot of things related to like the quality of the code generated by JIT, like performance optimizations related to ARM64 and vectorization and other optimizations. So really nice release, like just an improvements of what they had before. So they are moving forward seems with this .NET 8. Okay, and let's move on to ASP.NET Core updates. Right, so so ASP.NET Core 8 Preview 4. So what was released here? Seems like Microsoft continue investing in Blazor. They are trying to make this technology really cool, really nice, really popular. And there are like 4 major things here. First of all, they enabled stream rendering. This is, for example, the situation when you have like server-side rendering, and you started rendering a particular page or component, and then you have asynchronous operation, let's say database call. So in a classic way, user have to wait until the whole asynchronous operation is executed, and then the page is rendered, and then full page is returned. So with this feature, with streaming rendering, you can return part of your rendered component and execute your asynchronous operation on the server, and then return the rest of HTML. So this will create like a really nice user experience in some cases when you have server-side rendering, of course. What else? So handling form posts with Blazor SSR. This is probably just a crucial feature that wasn't implemented yet. So now it's here. Route to named elements in Blazor. So this is just ability to navigate to an element with a particular identity. And WebSeal packaging for Blazor WebAssembly apps. So if you're not aware, currently .NET libraries that are executed by Blazor, they are shipped as Windows DLLs, and this WebSeal tool, WebSeal shape, will allow us to get rid of all Windows-specific things from these DLLs, which will make this like delivery of this DLLs a little more secure in some environments where this is really necessary. Right. So that was Blazor. What else? So of course, Microsoft continue to invest in API development, and their primary focus right now is minimal APIs. What was introduced is related to binding for different forms. For example, quite often you have like a form on your page, and in this form, let's say user may choose a file and upload a file through the form submit. So I am really surprised that that wasn't implemented yet, but now it is implemented. It's only now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They introduced minimal API 2 releases ago, but still continue work on bringing it. It's in pair is controllers.
Yeah.
Stuff.
This is really crucial functionality, and it wasn't implemented yet. Yeah. Okay, so now it's possible to upload files with minimal APIs. That's good.
It looks
what
like
else?
they're all not sure why they need this kind of minimal API and where to use it.
Yeah. Strange thing. Okay, what else? API project template now includes .http file. If you never saw that before, this is like a special files where you can place like a set of HTTP queries to your API and test them. So the syntax is pretty close to like curl. Well, I think it's close to curl, but a little bit different, right? Well, maybe not.
Looks
but
like
anyway,
some PowerShell stuff.
Yeah, it's something strange. But okay, so they placed here a reference. Okay, nothing really interesting here. But yeah, so what you will be able to do, you will be able to create this not create it, you will get it for free once you start a new API project. And in that .http file, you will be able to put like your requests and test your APIs, not through the Swagger, for example, like we usually do that, but through this .http files. And also Visual Studio, I think, was upgraded, and now it supports these files natively, or probably it's through the plugin, I'm not sure. It has a nice editor, nice visualizer of your .http files, so you will be able to play with your API without a Swagger, which is like opinionated, but okay, it makes sense at least. Okay, what else? Native IoT. Native IoT is a really, for me, this is the most exciting feature because with help of native IoT, I hope we will be able to come up to really small, fast, with a really with a real fast startup time APIs, and we will be able to use like serverless technologies like Lambdas or Azure Functions to host our .NET applications and have real cost savings on that.
Recently, I saw a comparison table made by one of main contributors to Native IoT in .NET Runtime when he compared size and performance of API applications made with .NET Minimal IP Native IoT and with Go, and .NET was better at every
in
point.
in every direction, right? So that's exciting, really exciting. So of course, when you do like such things like native IoT in a .NET world, it's really hard to keep alive all the functionality, especially everything that is related to reflection or dynamic executions and so on, because now you have like a native executable, and Microsoft proceed investing into bringing as much functionality as it's possible to the native IoT. But there are a lot of challenges here, obviously. What they did, they introduced set of analyzers that will highlight to you that, for example, this functionality wouldn't work if you try to do this build in native IoT style. For example, MVC doesn't work with native IoT because there is a lot
Doesn't
of
yet.
reflection. Yeah,
Doesn't yet, but it might be
we
finalized
hope.
by
Yeah.
release. Yeah, if everything goes smoothly.
So also they propose like to in order to reduce the size of the application, they propose to use like create web application.create slim builder extension that will throw away a lot of functionality like HTTPS or quick and other things. And here they show that, for example, the default size of the application without AUT is 88 megs. When we had preview 3, it was 11. Now it's a little more than 9. And just take a look at this startup time. It's only 32 milliseconds, which is really amazing. Really amazing numbers. It's almost instantaneously. Really nice achievement. Okay, so also some changes related to authentication and authorization. So now you do not need any third-party libraries to have authorization or authentication enabled in your .NET applications. Am I right, Vladimir? Was it the purpose
From
of
what I
that change?
understand, they bring ASP.NET Core identity to minimal API with reduced capabilities only for backend like applications when you have backend for frontend. Yeah, in this .NET 8 release, they pay more attention to authentication and authorization areas because for the last few years they received a lot of complaints from community on different portals like Reddit, on comments on YouTube, on personal contacts on GitHub that it's very hard topic, hard to understand. It has very high learning curve and not best documentation. So they pay more attention to this area and to make it more productive, to make it easier for new developers, to easier to understand. I believe everyone who tried to implement something custom in the past understands what I mean now.
Yeah, especially this dependency on this strange doing the package, right, identity server.
It works
was
as long
horrible.
as you follow to do documentation.
Yeah.
One step aside and you are in trouble.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. Also in this release, they continue work on Entity Framework Core, and they like focus on old issues that were created on GitHub and were upvoted by community. It means that it's highly requested feature. It's painful for a lot of people, for a lot of companies and projects. And one of such problems was SQL Server query cache pollution problem when you used contains queries with like arrays of numbers, and it generated and it effectively inlined all the values into your query. SQL Server tried to cache results, then you executed different query with a different set of numbers
Arrays,
in
yeah.
in the filter, and it generated different plan. So as a result, you might see performance degradation, and they addressed the feature by putting of your array filter in a separate parameter, so it can be cached for the whole query instead of all variations of this query. It's one of such improvements. And second improvements is that they started to utilize native SQL Server capability in JSON handling, because sometimes some databases support arrays in columns, some like Postgres, for example, it's a native type for it, but SQL Server doesn't support it. And in the past, they implemented varchar data type. And now they expand the support to make these queries faster by utilizing of native SQL Server support for JSON queries. So they like transform your varchar into native or into JSON format and work with it with filters as a JSON value. And but the problem is that such a query is not supported on the older versions of SQL Server. So to mitigate this, they introduced new setting for your database context when you can tell to EF Core which database version is minimal on your production server, for example, like because otherwise it doesn't know what to do with your database until it fails on older ones when you execute your queries.
Yeah.
Mostly
So
that's all for this update. Yeah.
I really like that this and this engine. Yeah. So now this contains for array, for example, it works really flexible. So the quality of generated SQL is very nice. It's very good. So you can do really complicated things in your link, and in most cases it will be correctly translated into SQL, which is very good, very exciting.
Aside of such big changes in nature release, they continue to improve the query generation, and I believe you can, that Entity Framework Core generates a lot more simpler and nicely looking queries than Entity Framework, for example, old one, and with in comparison with previous versions, because they continue to eliminate some extra braces in some queries, simplify queries, improve performance without any changes from your side. You can just upgrade your version cross of fingers and run integration tests to check that everything works.
Yeah.
Yes, did you see somewhere comparison? I mean, performance comparison. How fast now is the
Entity Framework?
Yes, Entity Framework.
Unfortunately not. Last such comparison I saw when they addressed performance difference with Dapper in .NET 6 for query operations, I believe. And the difference was up to 10%. No more.
Okay, so we will talk about that very soon, but on a Microsoft Build, there was a in-depth session about the performance in .NET applications, and they showed some samples regarding Entity Framework Core optimizations, but it wasn't a kind of comparison of Entity Framework with the rest of the world. It was a comparison of Entity Framework with Entity Framework. So non-optimized queries with optimized queries. There are a lot of tweaks right now in, as I understood, there are a lot of tweaks in Entity Framework that could help you to bring like a real performance. But if you don't do everything correctly, then the performance wouldn't be great. But so probably in most cases it would be okay for you. But if you are trying to implement really high performant application, then yeah, you need to do some dive into the performance optimizations. Well, at least they have them right now. That's good.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the EF Core 8 release just to see how they implement native IoT support for it. For
Yeah,
libraries
it would be interesting.
heavily relies on reflection.
Yeah, I think they will have to generate a lot of code in order to support. Yeah.
Entity Framework Slim.
Okay. Yeah. By the way, yes. When there was so we are starting talking about build. Okay. So in this in-depth session, they also mentioned that currently Entity Framework obviously doesn't work with native IoT because it needs a lot of reflection capabilities, and instead of that they propose to use Dapper-like ORMs, and they even introduced a small Dapper-like library. They called it Nano or something like that. So not very good name. I think it's just in a draft state, which provides you Dapper-like ORM experience. But for now, yeah, Entity Framework Core doesn't work with .NET IoT, with native IoT. It doesn't work. Microsoft proposes to rely on something Dapper in a Dapper-like style for now. Let's see what will happen next. Okay, so we've already moved to the second part of our conversation, which is Microsoft Build, and we have here like a link to what they call Book of News. Oh, by the way, I think I hasn't published the link yet to this to our set of links. Let me do that. Let me post it in the chat. Okay, so what you can see here in this Book of News just highlights regarding all the topics that were covered on the build event. So you can open, for example, table of content and see what is here. And if you briefly look at that, you will understand that vast majority of the conversations were about different flavors of AI, right? So there were some .NET related topics, some Azure related topics. Well, a lot of Azure, obviously, as usual, but the amount of conversations about AI is just unbelievable. So Microsoft is like a primary contributor to OpenAI, and now they try to utilize this their advantage as much as it's possible. So they introduced a lot of new products related to AI, integrations with Azure services, a lot of tons of offerings. And if you even take a look at my background, you will see this picture from Windows 11. So this assistant, GPT-based assistant, will come up to Windows 11 very soon. So yeah, Microsoft tries to use their advantages related to AI as much as it's possible, get
But
as
I
much
didn't get.
revenue.
Will these new helpers and assistant will replace Cortana or what? Or
I
it
think
will be no then.
Cortana had been disappeared a couple years ago, so
Really?
that like yeah, so it's not in Windows anymore. Yeah, I think they stopped investing
But
into that, and
yeah, I still think that it's somewhere here in my computer.
maybe
I don't know.
it's just it just became silent, right? Yeah, I think it's another incarnation of Cortana probably.
Maybe.
So again, just briefly look at this Book of News. You will get some major understanding of what happened on this build event. There is nothing about .NET, by the way, here, but about the rest of the topics you may find it here without watching tons of videos. Regarding videos, yeah. So here we collected set of links to the most interesting talks that had happened on build event, and logically we split them in three topics, all that is related to artificial intelligence, Copilot, GPT, and so on. Then all that is related to .NET, and then all that's related to all interesting topics that are related to the Azure. And of course, openings by Satya Nadella. So as usual, Satya had a really exciting speech and announced like was the most interesting, most exciting updates by Microsoft. Alexander, did you watch these AI topics? Because I
Honestly,
hadn't had
not
a chance.
all of them, because you
Not
are
all.
right. Not all of them, but you are right that all this event, I mean, Microsoft was built around the OpenAI, and every topic and every conversation was, kind of targeted to AI stuff. And from my perspective, now Microsoft plays a role like drug dealer. They sell us AI drugs, and after some time, when we'll be in the needle, right, we'll kind of depend on Microsoft. And anyway, just my opinion, because personally, I don't super like the AI stuff. It never works for me fine. Right. So anyway, they provided a lot of information, and it is not possible to remember everything, and just try to extract it something interesting that, from my perspective, will be useful. And the first part that I want to say it is integration, the Copilot, not Copilot. Every time I'm mixing this stuff, ChatGPT and OpenAI into Microsoft products like Microsoft Office and the Windows itself. So it will be widely integrated into every Microsoft Office product. I mean, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and so on, and even Teams, right? Correct. And also directly integrated into Windows, like Alexei said a few minutes ago. So I watched a few presentations about it, and it looks very interesting and kind of scary, right? Because you can ask the helper and the Office to generate for you some documents based on just the tags. And yeah, it will do it for you actually. For example, if you ask him to generate presentation about some product and put the documents about the product, it will do some summarization, and based on it create a new document with more detailed explanation what is the product about, and even be able to generate some presentation about it based on pictures, right?
Yeah.
The second stuff, it is able to generate for you some documentation related, some advice. I don't know how to call it correctly, but what's the idea of the presentation? They ask to provide ChatGPT opinion about how this document is legible from law side for this concrete city. And the ChatGPT said that some personal opinion about it, and after that it was able to regenerate this document with some correction. It knows the law of this concrete city and or state, and based on it did some correction, and the document looks very interesting. Also, they introduced a lot of stuff related to Microsoft Excel spreadsheets, because it's just the data, and I suppose that any Copilot, any ChatGPT model able to do some amazing stuff with data, any charts, any graphs, and a lot of stuff. And the last thing that they introduced, not only in the Microsoft Office, I suppose it will be supported in the every Microsoft product, is the plugins. For me, it is not clear how to create the plugins, because maybe I missed something in the presentation, maybe they didn't show it clear, but the idea that we'll be able to create our own plugins for every Microsoft products, and the plugin will be based on data from this OpenAI model. It can use the existing trained model, and it can use your own data, or it can be mix your and existing data, right? But these plugins can be integrated in the, I suppose that in the every Microsoft product that they have. Yeah, it is about integration to Microsoft Office and the Windows. The second part, it is developers helping utility in tools like GitHub Copilot. I suppose that every developer, Microsoft developer, now more or less familiar with this cool thing. And now they provide us kind of modern, updated version of GitHub Copilot. They call it GitHub Copilot X.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will be based.
Or 10.
Yeah, the name.
10. Is it 10?
Or maybe, I don't know. maybe it is 10. But I think that is X. For me, it sounds more cool, X.
Okay.
So this new X version will be based on the ChatGPT 4 model. It means that by default it will be much more smart than the previous just Copilot. And the communication with Copilot will be just a bit different, because previously how it looks in the editor, you will have some suggestion from this Copilot about the about your code, right? Now you will be able to do some real conversation with Copilot. You can ask him to do some
code,
review.
Yeah,
right. Review your code, or explain some piece of code. What's the idea of the code? What's the
it's more closer to Copilot, right? So
right.
However, yeah,
right.
if you ask this Copilot to explain the code, then probably you became a co-pilot of copilots.
Yeah,
If you understand what I mean.
Yeah, interesting idea actually. But you are right. Now it looks more solid. I mean, based on name, how it's called, Copilot. Now it looks more solid. You can ask, Copilot to do a lot of stuff for you, and actually, it not depends from what is the code base that you are working on. It can be C#, it can be Python. You even can, in the editor, the conversation with Copilot is in the top level, and you can switch between the projects and the project, and it can be different project in the different languages, and Copilot will kind of understand the context of the previous one, right? And for example, you was working on some C# project, and then you switch to Terraform project to deploy something and to generate some resources for you. It will remember what kind of library and resources you used in the C# project. Based on it, it will understand your request to generate the code for a Terraform script. Yeah, very interesting stuff.
Yeah, so let's see how it works in reality. I mean, the only problem, it's all sounds really amazing, really exciting, and the only problem that I can see here with all this AI and GPT technologies is the level of trust. Yeah, so
Yes,
we
of course.
should really trust to these tools. We should rely on. We should be make sure we should be confident that everything that it tells us is truth, is the truth, which is kind of opinionated thing, right?
Imagine that,
But really,
imagine that your boss asks you to, to do some analysis in the document, and they say it. You can ask ChatGPT, "Hey, man, is it correct from law side?" And it says yes, okay.
yes.
And you have to go and say your boss that the document is okay. You have to absolutely trust this utility. I don't know. I'm not able to trust this stuff.
Yeah, it's like when you are at school and you are just trying to put that, and you are solving a particular task, and you're just relying on your neighbors. You should trust them.
Right.
Interesting demo. Sorry, yeah, interesting demo with Copilot was related to like, please fix my bugs. Yeah, and all bugs in the code were fixed.
Yeah, that's cool demo.
So
yeah,
it worked every time. It works in presentation, on demo, it works fine. But when just try this stuff in the real life, I suppose it will almost never work fine, at least currently.
Yeah. For example,
some reason, I'm sure.
Last time I tried to ask, well, they are also they integrated this GPT chat into Bing, and for example, on my mobile, I saw it for a couple of weeks already, and I asked it to write C# code for me, Hello World application. And the initial version was like with this main method, well, classic version. Then I asked to rewrite this application into C# 11's version, and it didn't change anything. Then I emphasized
maybe
that
just
I
number
need
in the CS
C# 11 with top level statements, and only after that I got the version of Hello World without main class, without program class, and without main method. Yeah. So I knew what I wanted to get, and that's why I came up to the solution with this GPT chat conversation. Interesting. Okay, anyway, really exciting to see all these products released by Microsoft, all these integrations of AI into our life. Let's see how it works, how it changes our lives. Cool.
So, look,
yeah.
Just one last topic, if you.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
How to start? So, the Copilot and the ChatGPT functionality available for every developer, even for every person who is using any Microsoft product, right? And it means that Microsoft under the hood somehow needs to have a really big amount of resources to manage it. Because it should work pretty smooth for us. Do not wait an hour to give answer from Copilot, for example. And They explain it in this presentation how it works under the hood. They created specific service for it. It calls Azure OpenAI service, right? And to work with it, they created a tool like Azure OpenAI Studio. What is it? Right under the hood. So as usual in the presentation, it looks super cool, super simple, super cool, right? But just few lines in the UI when you're able to integrate your data into some existing training model or create from scratch a new training model, and then reuse it with specific interface. I mean, not UI interface, an integration interface in your application. For in their presentation, it looks super simple. Just data integration. There is it, but how it will work in the real life, I don't know. We'll see. What is what is additional interesting in this Azure OpenAI Studio and service, because Azure OpenAI Studio internally contains Copilot helper, which will help you to build your own training model or something like this. Yeah, looks interesting.
Okay. There is a possibility to use AI technology in order to generate a new AI, to create a new AI technology.
Right. Maybe in the future you'll have just one button like a generate it, and there is a super clean interface, nothing else, just to generate for me something that I want. And
generate for me a product that will bring you, let's say, a couple millions revenue per year.
Yeah, and as usual it says, oh, okay.
Okay, here's it. Right. Can we move on, Alexander, or you still want
All
to?
right. No,
Okay.
Let's move on.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted just to talk a little bit about .NET topics that were covered on this Microsoft Build event. And first of all, I would like to start with discussing the presentation conducted by Scott Hanselman. Always enjoy his skills, his presentation skills. And this time he talked about. So the topic was developer joy with Scott Hanselman and friends, and the purpose of this of his speech was to convince developers to use Windows for a day-to-day development activities, and there were a set of tools announced that should make developers' life. I mean, developers who use Windows life more joyful. There were like few interesting announcements. First of all, they announced what they called Dev Home portal, well, or suite. I'm not sure how to call it. This is just an application that allows you to set up your machine and make it like first-class development machine. It allows you to do a lot of things like adding your GitHub profiles, configuring your Windows machine, installing like different applications like related to your development activities. For example, you can just choose like your winget configuration file, and it will automatically provision everything that is listed in your winget, like Visual Studio Code, and other tools. They also announced what they called Dev Drive. This is a special file system. Well, not. I think it existed for some time. It's a Windows specific file system. They called it ReFS. And the purpose of this file system to provide high performant operations for development activities. And they showed some demo. And for example, if you build like a large .NET solution that is placed on this dev drive that you can configure, you will get like approximately 22% of the performance, which is good. This is for free, right? So, for example, I personally do have a dedicated drive on my machine where I place all that is related, all the repositories, everything that is related to development, and Microsoft proposes to have like a special drive for that. That's cool. That's kind of cool. And of course, there was a lot of conversations about how you can quickly set up your machine and start doing the development activities. So really nice presentation and a lot of interesting tools, a lot of interesting things showed there. Some fun about retro terminals are there. So really recommend to watch this video by Scott Hanselman, conducted by Scott Hanselman. So if we look at these .NET topics that were conducted on build event, we wouldn't see any like anything new. So almost they just covered almost the same topics that were covered in let's say in their preview announcements or so. So nothing really special, but yeah, like just watching these videos and just paying attention on some things would be beneficial for you guys. So really recommend to go through this videos and see what they talked about on them. For example, like just some highlights from me. Microsoft recommends to upgrade to newer versions of .NET just because you will get the performance benefits almost for free. So all that you need to do is to upgrade your solution and get the benefits of the recent release, all the performance benefits, new library capabilities, new let's say new optimized ways of compiling your code and so on. So this is for free. So you usually don't need to do anything because usually there is no breaking changes, almost no breaking changes from the release to release. Yeah, this is just a real smart move to upgrade to keep your .NET up to date. Also, this time Microsoft talked a lot about their internal projects that were migrated from the legacy version of .NET to newer versions, and they shared some numbers. And usually, when internal team completed an upgrade of their systems to a recent version of .NET, they got like a significant boosts of performance, significant and a lot of cost savings. That's nice that Microsoft started showing this on their presentations, but unfortunately, there were nothing about Blazor usage, right? So they tried to make Blazor a first-class framework, but they don't use it internally. That seems to be strange for me. What else? Yeah, so there was a conversation about IoT a little bit. Again, they showed how our IoT helps to improve the startup time, and that IoT compiled .NET applications can perform really great. There was a dedicated talk about C# 12. So Matt Storgerson and Dustin talked about features that they are considering to integrate in C# 12. So it's still in a draft state, but there looks like there will be some interesting stuff. What will be definitely there is primary constructors. To me, I don't really like this feature because it confuses a lot, because in records, these primary constructors existed and they behave a little bit different in comparing to class behavior. But anyway, it seems like this is almost finalized, so we will have these primary constructors. And there are a few other things announced that are still not finalized, but probably will be released in C# 12. Okay, so really recommend to go through these .NET related topics and watch. For example, this Q&A session was also really interesting. At least there was a conversation about the future of the Blazor and how at least people who are working on ASP.NET Core, how they understand its future and where ASP.NET Core and the whole .NET will go in the future. So really nice topics were covered on that. Okay, so the last part, well, the last part is what was highlighted on related to Microsoft Azure on the build event. Arthur, yeah.
Yes, as for me, as for developer, the most interesting video was related to building and scanning cloud native application on Azure. In the presentation were shown Azure services, Azure tools, and Kubernetes and GitHub actions extensions for Visual Studio Code. That tools helps us to simplify our daily work with Azure, Kubernetes, etc. We introduced several Azure services like App Spaces. App Spaces enable us to reduce the complexity of deployment application to Azure. We can do it by one click. Just refer to our GitHub repository, and App Spaces will scan our repository to find infra files, Docker file, for example, Terraform or Biceps files, and all appropriated resources that were described in those files will be deployed to Azure by one click. I think the main points what we can underline from this presentation, yeah, it's like deploying applications to Azure by one click. It's the name is a Git first approach. We can do it with App Spaces service or via CLI tool like Azure Developer CLI. We can just write AZD app and all resources will be deployed. This tool does the same things like App Spaces, just scanning our repository to find infra files and deploy to Azure. And the second topic related to managing and monitoring cloud resources in Azure by Visual Studio Code extensions was were shown so extension like Kubernetes, Azure tool, and GitHub Actions, where we can manage and see what was deployed to our cluster, for example, for Kubernetes, and it doesn't matter what is deployed to Azure or on your local machine, for example, for Docker desktop, and we can manage it in one place. For me, it looks good. But it's not new extensions, yeah, because I've used it before, but I don't know why they pay attention on it in their presentation. And I think the last presentation was related to Azure innovations with Mark Rusinovich. Yeah, he described some innovations related to replacing related to a new type of cabling to connect data centers. New type.
Fiber.
Yeah, the name is hollow core fiber. Yeah. As a result, the speed of sending a message between New York, for example, and London was increased. It's about 47% faster. It means that we will have lower latency, yeah, between
especially if we decide to play some online games, right, with servers located in the United States from Europe. Really important.
Agree. The next innovation was related to introducing Azure Linux distro. It's optimized for Azure hardware, and it should work.
I think the purpose also to use it in Kubernetes clusters, right?
Yeah. Yes. One more thing was introduced in a new service. It's Azure Container Storage, where we can attach pool of disk to pods instead of a previous approach like one by one, yeah, one disk to one pod, etc. From demo, we can see that it was faster. Yeah, it was faster attaching a lot of disks to pods.
Lots of pods, yeah.
Yeah, yes. Another topic related to container was introduced a tool related to keep images fresh. The project name is Capacetic. It means that if we have some vulnerabilities in our layers during the creation image, we can update all vulnerabilities without rebuilding. Yeah, without rebuilding image, just pass it into this tool, and that's all. It will fresh, and I think that's pretty all from this topic.
Yeah. Well, there were some topics related to Kubernetes and to AKS service and to Azure Container Apps. So Microsoft proceeds to investing into container apps. There were some new things announced. For example, jobs support in Azure Container Apps. Yeah, a few other things. Also in AKS, they announced, as far as I remember, Istio plugin support, so now you can spin up your cluster with this popular service mesh technology already enabled, and like few other things related to that topics. But yeah, I think we've covered
Kubernetes
most
was introduced a new service, Kubernetes Fleet Manager, where enable us to manage multi-cluster in one place.
Yeah. And of course, there was a lot of conversations about AI and how Azure can empower you with AI toolsets and SDK available for you, so you can build like AI-enabled applications with Azure and use a lot of their services like bot service, different speech recognition, language, or any other service available in Microsoft Azure. Right. Okay, I think we've covered all the topics for today. So guys, we've already shared the link. I really recommend to go through the videos. Enjoy watching them, and I hope you will get some exciting updates from them. And for now, I think we can wrap up today's morning coffee. Unless, Olga, you want to add something at the end?
Thank you, guys. I just want to add that you can vote for this talk by the link in the chat. So please use it, and to say, not also to vote, but also to say thanks to our amazing speakers. Just press the link, then press the button, thank you. And that's it. Choose the badge, and we really, really appreciate it. So guys, you can say your thanks by this way.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.